Hello children, welcome back to science class. Today we can learn a new lesson, air and water. Do you know what is atmosphere? The blanket of air that surrounds the earth is called the atmosphere. What is atmosphere? The blanket of air that surrounds the earth is called the atmosphere. What are the importance of atmosphere? The atmosphere contains oxygen and carbon dioxide. Oxygen is necessary for all the living things to breathe, and carbon dioxide is necessary for plants for producing food. Atmosphere regulates the temperature on the earth. Atmosphere plays an important role in the water cycle. Atmosphere has the ozone layer which protects us from the harmful rays of the sun. Which rays are they? Yes, it is ultraviolet rays. Now we can learn about the layers of the atmosphere. Which are the different layers of atmosphere? Atmosphere is divided into 5 layers. The troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere and exosphere. Which are the 5 layers? Troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere and thermosphere. Now we can learn about troposphere. Troposphere extends up to about 15 to 20 kilometers above the surface of the earth. Most weather changes take place in this layer, and this is the only layer which we can breathe normally. Next is stratosphere. Stratosphere extends up to 50 kilometers above the surface of the earth. It contains ozone layer, and the jet planes are usually flying in this layer. Next layer is mesosphere. This layer extends to about 80 to 90 kilometers above the surface of the earth, and the meteors burns up here. Next layer is thermosphere. Thermosphere extends up to 500 to 690 kilometers above the surface of the earth. And the last layer is exosphere. It lies above the thermosphere and fades into the space. Now we learn about different layers of atmosphere. Which are they? Troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere and exosphere. Now we can learn about the composition of air. Air is a mixture of gases. About 78% of air is nitrogen. 21% is oxygen and 1% is other gases. Along with these all gases, air also contains water vapor, dust and smoke. And do you know children what is humidity? The amount of water vapor in air is called humidity. Now children, we learn about the composition of air. What are the composition of air? Air is a mixture of gases. About 78% of air is nitrogen, 21% is oxygen and 1% is other gases. Along with this, water vapor, dust and smoke also are included in the air. And then we discussed about humidity. What is humidity? The amount of water vapor in air is called humidity. Now we can learn about the properties of air. The first property of air is air occupies space. To understand this property, we can do an experiment. Take an empty glass and pour water into it. Air escapes from the top of the glass as the water fills the glass. Now we can do another experiment. In this experiment, take a bowl half filled with water. Stuff the bottom of an empty glass with cotton wool. Hold the glass upside down and push it slowly into the water without tilting it. Air now has no way to come out of the glass. Carefully take the glass out of the water without tilting it. Now feel the cotton at the bottom. Is it still dry? Yes, the water could not enter the glass as there was air in it. When you push the glass into the water and tilt the glass slowly, you will see the bubbles of air escaping and the water entering the glass. Now feel the cotton after taking the glass out of the water. Now you can see, yes, it is wet now. From this activity we can understand that air occupies space. The next property of air is air has weight. For this we can do an activity. Tie a piece of string to the middle of a scale. Take two inflated balloons of the same size. Tie a balloon to each end of the scale. Make sure both ends of the scale are at the same level. Now prick one of the balloon carefully so that all the air escapes. The end of the scale with balloon filled with air will come down. It contains air and is therefore heavier. This shows that air has weight. The next property of air is air exerts pressure. Air exerts pressure. Now we can do another activity. Fill a glass with water up to the brim. Carefully place a piece of stiff card over the mouth of the glass. Make sure that no air is trapped in between water and the card. Hold the card in place with your hand and turn the glass upside down. Remove your hand. You will find that the card stays in place and the water does not flow out. This is because air exerts pressure on the card from below to keep the card in place. Now we can do the next activity, that is, for this activity, take a plastic container with a tight fitting cap. Pour some hot water into the bottle and after about a minute, screw the cap back tightly. Keep the bottle in a bowl and pour cold water and ice on the top of it. Now watch it collapses from all sides. This is because the water vapor from the hot water in the bottle drives out most of the air from the bottle, and when the bottle is cold, the water vapor condenses. There is almost no air inside the bottle now, and so the air pressure is very little. The pressure exerted on all sides of the bottle by the air outside is much more. This pressure acts on the bottle, making it go out of the shape. From this activity, we can understand that air exerts pressure. Do you know, children, how does a straw bring liquid up to your mouth? When you suck the air in the straw, the air pressure inside the straw decreases. The air pressure on the surface of the drink is now more than the air pressure inside the straw. This forces the drink into the straw and your mouth. a medicine dropper, then a syringe. These all are working in the same way. When you pump air into the tire of your bicycle, it gets harder because the increased air pressure. And from these all activities, we can understand that air exerts pressure. So now we can learn the next property of air, that is oxygen in air is needed for burning. For this activity, we can take 2 candles. Fix 2 small candles on a table. Cover one of the candle with a glass. You will find that the flame goes off after a few seconds. However, the uncovered candle keeps burning. This activity shows that air is needed for burning. Now we learned different properties of air. Which are the different properties of air? The first property is air occupies space. The second one is air has weight. The third property is air exerts pressure. And the last property is the oxygen in the air is needed for burning. Now we can learn about soluble and insoluble substances. When you add salt into a glass of water, the salt and water together forms a solution, and this solution is called salt solution. Here the water is called a solvent and the salt is called the solute. Water is called the solvent and salt is called the solute. And the substances that can be dissolved in water are called soluble substances. Example, sugar and salt. And insoluble substances. What are insoluble substances? The substances that cannot be dissolved in water are called insoluble substances. Examples are chalk powder, sand, wooden powder or pencil shavings. These all are the examples of insoluble substances. Now we learned about soluble and insoluble substances. What are soluble substances? The substances that can be dissolved in water are called soluble substances. Example, salt and sugar. What are insoluble substances? The substances that cannot be dissolved in water are called insoluble substances. Example, chalk powder and sand. There are different types of impurities in water. Among them, some impurities are insoluble while the others are soluble. Now we can learn how to remove the soluble and insoluble impurities from the water. How we can remove the soluble impurities and insoluble impurities. At first, we can learn about how to remove the insoluble impurities from the water. The insoluble impurities can be removed from water by mainly 3 processes. They are sedimentation, decantation and filtration. Sedimentation, decantation and filtration. What is sedimentation? The process of removing heavier insoluble impurities from water is called sedimentation. What is sedimentation? The method of removing heavier insoluble impurities from water is called sedimentation. What is decantation? The process of pouring out of the clear water into another glass is called decantation. What is decantation? The process of pouring out of clear water into another glass is called decantation. The next method is filtration. Filtration can be done by using a filter paper. Now we can learn how to fold a filter paper. Take a filter paper and fold the filter paper into half and then into a quarter. Open it in to make a cone. Take a funnel and place the filter paper inside the funnel. Then place the funnel over the mouth of a glass. Now pour the impure water into the funnel. The clean water will be collected in the glass and all the mud particles will be left behind the filter paper. So now we learned about how to remove the insoluble impurities from water by the processes called sedimentation, decantation and filtration. Now we can learn how to remove the soluble impurities from water. Soluble impurities can be removed from water by the processes called evaporation followed by condensation, and it is used to remove the soluble impurities from water. It is also called distillation. How can we remove the soluble impurities from water? By the process called evaporation followed by condensation, and this is called distillation. Do you know, children, the drinking water normally contains some impurities along with some germs, and we can use a substance called alum to purify water. We can also use water purifiers, and we can also use some ultraviolet light to kill the germs from the water. In town, the water supply, the water is purified in the water works to make it fit for drinking. We can learn which are the processes which is done in water purification plants. The first process is called screening. What is screening? The heavier or the larger impurities like stones, leaves and so on. These all things can be removed by using some screens, and this process is called screening. And the second method is called sedimentation. What is sedimentation? The process of removing heavier insoluble impurities from water is called sedimentation. And the next method is filtration. The water is then filtered through sand beds or layers of sand, gravels and charcoal to filter out smaller impurities from it. And the next process is called chlorination. Here the chlorine is added in small amounts to kill germs from the water. Okay, so children, tell me which are the methods which are involved in water purification processes. At first, screening. Screening is the process of removing the larger impurities. And second one is sedimentation. What is sedimentation? The process of removing heavier insoluble impurities from water is called sedimentation. Next, it is filtration. Here the water is filtered through sand beds and the layers of sand, gravels and charcoal to filter out all the small insoluble impurities. And the last process is called chlorination. Here the chlorine is added in small amounts to kill germs. Okay children, only this much about this lesson. Okay, and we can learn the next chapter in the next class. Okay children, bye. Have a nice day.